Denise, thank you for taking time out of your day to talk today with Refining Purpose. I'm really excited to hear your story. You are from Newfoundland, Canada, right?
Right?
Awesome.
Very far away from you and very cold.
It's a little bit cold here, but I can only imagine how cold it is over there. So this is awesome. You're a registered cardiology technologist and a certified health and life coach and a former foster youth. Do I have that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I'm going to start off today's discussion with asking you a few questions. And one of them is, can you talk about your experiences as an entrepreneur and writer and just kind of your career? What do you do?
Okay, well, full time I work as a cardio tech, so that's the registered cardiology technologist. I work in a hospital Monday to Friday and do non-invasive cardiology testing. So anything that's non-invasive, like EKGs, stress testing, blood pressure monitors, and heart monitors. So that's my day job. And then in the evenings and on the weekends, I'm a health and life coach. So I coach individuals one-on-one. Right now, I'm coaching women who are looking to either lose or gain weight, depending on what it is that they're looking for. Body confidence, if they want to increase their energy or reverse lifestyle changes such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease, etc. And then the life coaching part, I'm more focused on advocating for former foster youth and adoptees, because I think the life coaching part of it is something that is not accessible right now. There's minimal support for people that are aging out of the system. There's a lot more for when you're in the system, I think, rather than when you're outside of it. And it doesn't really matter the age. Like in Canada, it's 18. I'm not sure what it is in the States.
Yeah.
What is it?
When you're aging out, they start extending the services now from 18 to about 21.
Okay.
Resources, but we're definitely seeing that here as well. And it does increase as far as homelessness and the
Mm-hmm.
substance use and mentally ill population. So
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. I definitely think they should extend some of those resources and focus more on, the post-adoption services and
Yes.
aging out of foster care as well. So that's a good point. Can you talk about
Mm-hmm.
some of those gaps a little bit more as far as the limitations offered to people where you're living?
I think there's a lot of like age restrictions. I know that they do have certain programs, I think, here in the eastern part of Canada for ages 18 to 24, but a lot of it has to do with housing,
Mhm.
and trying to find jobs and um, like food places where they can go and get food. There's like a gathering place where meals are provided so many days a week, and that helps. All of these services help, but what about the things that are not touched yet? Like, okay, you're out of the system, or you're out in the real world, we'll say, and what do you do next? Okay, you got a place to live, you got food, but what about all the things that are still inside your mind?
Mhm.
And you can talk to people, but it's not the same as having somebody who understands exactly where you've been and the way that you process this trauma and how it continues on into adulthood. These things need to be addressed as well.
Indeed, like, are we really hearing what this population needs, or are we assuming, okay, well, statistically speaking, these are the gaps, so let's help
Hmm.
them, that's great, but at the same time, have we actually like done some type of cohort study where we're truly listening to what they need and that trauma,
Hmm.
that processing trauma as well, and like you're saying,
Yeah.
fostering definitely understand what can
Hmm.
maybe help, and it's like that mentorship, like helping people succeed after that, helping them realize like what career path are you interested in pursuing, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's not only that, like there's relationships. How do you deal with relationships? Because sometimes you take a wrong road. When you get out there, you're thinking, okay, this is a great relationship. But then looking back, you're like, what the heck was I thinking? Right? Because you're still processing your own emotions, and you can't really, you can't love someone else until you learn how to love yourself. And when you don't, you get into different scenarios that are not the best for you at the time.
No, I can really
Right. So,
I got that.
mhm.
Can you now describe your experiences as a foster youth?
Oh, okay. Well, I went out into the system when I was 12. There was different types of abuse by both parents. So my mother and my father were involved in my trauma. He died shortly after I moved out. He died, and then about 6 months later, I moved out into foster care. So I was in an orphanage first for a little while. Then I was in a foster home. Then the social services system said, well, we're going to try to reconnect the family, right? Because this is what their goal is, to keep the children with the biological family. That's something else I don't agree with, because that's not always what's best for the child at the time. And that was what happened with me. I went back home for 3 months and I had to leave again because the situation didn't change. An abuser is an abuser, and I don't think they changed. That's my personal opinion. And then I went into a group home for 2 or 3 years, which was different because it was run by a couple of Catholic nuns. It was different. So it was basically like a lot of tough people in there. Like, I was there because of abuse and trauma from my parents, but a lot of them were more rambunctious, we'll say. So I had to kind of protect myself in there as well. And then I went into a foster home again for about 3 years, and then I aged out of the system. So I guess through all of those changes and the different environments I was in, I found it difficult to trust people. I felt like I was always angry, like I had to prove myself to everyone around me or defend myself against everyone around me. Which wasn't good, because I didn't want to feel like that, but I felt like I didn't have a choice. And in saying that, like, all of these experiences as I got older, I had to learn on my own. It took a long time to learn that I didn't have to be angry at the world, that I was in control of my emotions, and all of the things that I went through. Instead of being bitter about it, I realized that I have to become better. I can't let all of the trauma and all of those things destroy my inner peace and my future.
Wow, thank you for sharing that.
You're
That's
welcome.
and you said that you learned how to control your emotions and realize I don't have to be angry at the world.
Mm.
That's a lot of strength that you were able to do that. You learned it by yourself.
It
Um,
took a long time, but that's what I want to help people with, because if you have somebody that understands what you're processing, like, we all have stories, everybody is different, but the trauma hurts the same, so that need is out there.
and who was one of your role models? Like, was there a mentor in your life that you had?
Yeah, there was a sister, or a Catholic nun, in the group home. She was a social worker by trade. She was, I guess, basically the director of the group home, and she kind of helped me along the way. She didn't judge me for my anger. She kind of understood why I was angry and why I would lash out instead of, like, calmly approaching situations. And she just made me realize that, everybody goes through these things and you don't have to be mad. Like, she was very patient, and I think her patience helped me a lot throughout those couple of years that I was in the group home.
Wow. Well, that's awesome.
Mm. Yeah.
That I've had a few mentors. Honestly, they've impacted my life tremendously. So I think that is extremely important.
It makes a big difference. Yeah.
And what are some other challenges after being in foster care that you faced?
When I came out of foster care, you mean?
Something.
Yeah. Well, when I first came out of the system, they did have a program for foster youth, or former foster youth, that they would pay for 2 years of education after you got out of school, right? So I did the first year. I was still in foster care, and then before my 19th birthday, myself and another foster youth moved into an apartment. And of course, you have no supervision. You're wild and like, woohoo, let's go party. So I partied all the time and wasted my education and couldn't get it paid for. So I ended up having to pay for it myself. So I had to just do like minimum wage jobs, working in restaurants and cleaning in hotels and stuff like that. So that's that. Like if I had a mentor back then, I think I wouldn't have gone down that route. So I had a lot of similar things like that, detours along the way that prolonged my path to success
And
and
at
to become a better person, right?
yeah, and at what point did you have that revelation, if you will, this is what I want to do? When did that happen?
Um, I think I had a couple of revelations throughout my life. When I had my son, I was only 21 when I got pregnant. So that was a big eye opener because now I have this human that's totally dependent on me. And of course, my mindset at the time was he's going to have a better life than what I had. So I focused 18 years on him and making sure that he had a better life. And then he went off to college like 8 years ago, and I was working as a cardio tech in the hospital, and like after a couple of years, I just thought like there's something calling me. I have a purpose, and I still haven't found it.
Mm.
So I actually sat down one day and I started researching life coaches and things like that because I wanted to make an impact on individuals that I know there's a need for these services out there. So I went and got my health and life coaching certification. And that was maybe 2 years ago.
Amazing. I love how you said, I just sat and I'm like, what can I do to help people in need, and that
Exactly.
from the inside, you really have that heart. And I'm blessed to get to talk to you about that. Wow.
Oh, I'm blessed for you to talk to me.
Like honestly, it feels amazing that I'm getting to talk to someone who has similar experiences. Not everything, of course, but like
Mhm. Yeah.
get that trauma component, and it's like being ripped away from your biological family. Yes, they weren't obviously capable of taking care of you, and I understand
Hmm.
the perspective on that, but at the same time, it's like that is heavy, and then transitioning into like going into different caregivers who've taken care of you, going to that orphanage, right? It
Mm.
really sucks, and not a lot of people understand that. And they see you now, and it's like, well, you're in a great you're helping people. Like it wasn't the worst, but it's like it's hard.
It is very hard. But that's why you build resilience. You
Mhm.
get stronger after every situation that you go through. It doesn't work out, but you learn and it toughens you up, right? On the outside. You're still a softie inside. Yeah.
On that note, is there a piece of advice you'd like to give our viewers?
I think the biggest piece of advice I would give is don't let your past or your trauma from your earlier life, don't let that destroy your future. Just try to let it go. It's easier said than done, but
Mhm.
there's ways to deal with it, and you can be something. You're worthy. You're enough, and you're loved. That's about it.
Taking that advice. Gonna well, thank you. And what do you see in the future with your profession, and also now with refining purpose? Like, how can we work together, and where do you think we can fill in or bridge those gaps?
I think that partnering with Refining Purpose is a great opportunity for myself and for you guys as well. This is a service that can be inserted into that gap. It doesn't matter what age group it is. I can coach anybody from like if they're just coming out of the system to if they're in their 30s because there's a gap between all of these things. Like you get so much till what you said 21, but like that's still young.
Yeah.
That's still young. So like my coaching um dives into like just a general aspect of a person's life, deals with health, relationships, finances, that which is greater, whatever that looks like for somebody, career. And basically it's the right system, the right support and accountability to help you build your confidence and overcome trauma, and just to move forward in your life on a path that's going to bring you success instead of taking all these crappy detours that I took along the way.
That's powerful. Is there anything else you can think of that you'd like to share that you haven't touched on yet?
No, I don't think so. Got it all out there now.
All out. That's awesome. Oh, this is exciting. I'm excited to learn more from you, and I know our viewers will really appreciate all of the stuff you've shared with us, and just seeing that this is not just something here in Los Angeles or in the United States. It happens everywhere. People are
It's worldwide, yeah.
worldwide. It's a serious thing, and I don't think people talk about it that much.
It's kind of brushed under the rug in a lot of places.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Denise.
Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. We'll keep in touch, all right?
We will, alrighty.